Susan Nelson woke up to the soft beeping of her alarm. Today marked exactly 5 years since the USS Frontier had left Earth. 5 years of darkness, of stars streaming by the viewports, of wondering what they would find. She rubbed her eyes and got out of bed, her movements practiced in the artificial gravity that never quite felt like home. "Computer, ship status," she said. "All systems normal, Commander. We will reach Alpha Centauri in approximately 6 hours." The computer replied in its calm, emotionless voice. Susan felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach. Humanity's first journey to another star was about to reach its destination. Her name would be in history books alongside Columbus, Armstrong, and Kaminsky, the woman who had perfected the Henderson drive that made this journey possible. She showered quickly and put on her uniform. The dark blue fabric with silver trim had become a second skin over the years. The mission patch on her shoulder showed Earth and Alpha Centauri connected by a stylized warp field, with the words USS Frontier, First Contact Initiative, circling the design. Susan made her way to the mess hall where most of her senior crew had already gathered. The excitement in the room was almost electric. "Morning, Commander," said Alan Brooks, her communications officer. Alan was hunched over his tablet, his breakfast forgotten beside him. "I've been running frequency scans all night, still nothing." "You need to eat, Alan," Susan said, grabbing a coffee and a protein pack. "We can't make first contact if you pass out from hunger." Alan smiled but didn't look up. "If there's anyone out there, I want to hear them first." "Maybe they don't want to be heard," said Deborah White, the ship's chief science officer. Deborah was the oldest member of the crew at 52 with gray streaks in her dark hair. "Maybe they're watching us right now." Paul Fletcher, the ship's engineer, laughed. "Always the optimist, Deborah." "I'm just saying we shouldn't expect them to communicate the way we do," Deborah replied. "We're the newcomers here." Susan sat down with her crew. These people had become her family over the 5-year journey. They had celebrated birthdays together, mourned when news of deaths reached them from Earth, and spent countless hours training for this moment. "Any final checks we need to run before arrival?" Susan asked. "The Henderson drive will power down in about 4 hours, Paul said. "After that, we'll be on standard propulsion. All systems are green. Life support and environmental systems are functioning at optimal levels," added John Martinez, the ship's doctor and xenobiologist. "The isolation protocols are ready if needed." Susan nodded. "Good. Alan, keep scanning all frequencies. Deborah, I want full sensor sweeps of the system as soon as we're in range." After breakfast, Susan made her way to the bridge. The ship's command center was a circle of workstations surrounding a central holographic display, currently showing their approach to the Alpha Centauri system. The nearest star to Earth's sun was growing larger by the hour. Susan sat in the commander's chair and opened the ship's log. "Commander's log, day 1825. We are 6 hours from our destination. After 5 years of travel, the crew is eager to begin our survey of Alpha Centauri. Initial scans show no signs of artificial signals or structures, but we remain hopeful. Earth waits for our findings, though they won't receive our transmissions, for over 4 years. The burden of discovery rests solely on us now." Susan closed the log and looked around the bridge. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, each focused on their tasks. The soft hum of the ship's systems was occasionally broken by the beep of a console or a quiet conversation. "Commander," Alan called from his station, "I'm still not picking up any artificial signals from the system." Susan wasn't surprised. The odds of finding intelligent life in the very first star system humanity visited were incredibly small. Still, they had hoped. "Keep looking, Alan. We haven't even arrived yet." Hours passed slowly. Susan reviewed their mission objectives for the 100th time. They would spend 6 months surveying the Alpha Centauri system, focusing on the potentially habitable planets that Earth's telescopes had identified. They would collect data, deploy automated probes, and search for any signs of life, intelligent or otherwise. 2 hours to arrival, the computer announced. Susan called a final briefing in the conference room. All senior officers gathered around the table. "This is it," Susan said. "In 2 hours, We become the first humans to reach another star. No matter what we find or don't find, this mission is already a success. You've all performed admirably during this journey. What if we do find someone? Asked John, voicing the question they had all considered. What if there's an advanced civilization waiting for us? Then we follow first contact protocols, Susan replied. We approach cautiously, attempt to communicate and demonstrate peaceful intentions. We represent all of humanity out here. The briefing ended and everyone returned to their stations. Susan felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Whatever happened next would shape humanity's future among the stars. As they approached the system, Deborah's sensors began to gather data. I'm detecting a habitable planet orbiting Alpha Centauri b, she reported. Atmosphere contains oxygen, nitrogen. It could support human life. The crew exchanged excited glances. Finding a habitable world on their first try was beyond their hopes. Any signs of civilization? Susan asked. No artificial lights on the night side, Deborah replied. No obvious structures or modifications visible from this distance. Susan was about to order a closer approach when Alan suddenly straightened in his chair. Commander, I'm picking up something, he exclaimed, adjusting controls on his console. It's not coming from the planet, it's moving. On screen, Susan ordered. The holographic display shifted to show a visual from their forward sensors. At first, Susan saw nothing but stars. Then she noticed it, a small point of light moving in a way no natural object would move. Magnify, she said, her heart pounding. The image zoomed in, and everyone on the bridge fell silent. The object was clearly artificial. A sleek metallic vessel with an unusual iridescent sheen to its hull. It was smaller than the Frontier but moving with incredible precision. It's changing course, Deborah said quietly. It's heading directly toward us. Susan took a deep breath. The moment humanity had both dreamed of and feared had arrived. Yellow alert, she ordered. All hands to stations. Alan, broadcast our first contact message on all frequencies. Alan nodded and activated the prepared message, a series of mathematical sequences and simple greetings in the world's major languages. They're approaching fast, Paul reported. Their propulsion system, I've never seen anything like it. The alien vessel slowed as it neared the Frontier, coming to a relative stop about a kilometer away. It was close enough now that they could see details of its strange construction. The hull seemed to shimmer and shift almost as if it wasn't entirely solid. They're scanning us, Deborah said, watching her sensors. Multiple frequencies, some I can't even identify. Susan stood from her chair. Alan, are they responding to our message? I'm not sure, Alan replied, frowning at his console. I'm detecting energy patterns directed at us, but it's not radio waves or any communication method I recognize. John moved to Alan's station. May I? He asked, and Alan nodded. John studied the patterns. These look like quantum fluctuations, almost like they're trying to communicate through entangled particles. Can we respond in the same way? Susan asked. John shook his head. We don't have the technology. We can detect it, but we can't generate it. What no one on the Frontier knew was that the Galactic Council had been sending warnings to Earth for decades, using exactly this quantum communication method. To them, any species advanced enough for interstellar travel would have mastered quantum communication long ago. The fact that humans had developed the Henderson drive without this communication technology was unprecedented. The alien vessel continued to hover nearby, studying the human ship with growing curiosity and concern. Susan Nelson stood on the bridge of humanity's first starship, facing humanity's first contact with alien intelligence, unaware that they had just broken every rule in the Galactic Council's First Contact Handbook. Simply by being there, humans had sent a message the aliens couldn't ignore. The alien ship hung in space before them, its hull shimmering like oil on water. Susan felt a mix of fear and wonder. This was why they had traveled for 5 years. This was what humanity had dreamed of for centuries. All stations, report. Susan, said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. Shields at full power, Paul replied from engineering. Life support normal, John confirmed. No weapons detected on the alien vessel, Deborah added, but their technology is so advanced. I can't be certain. Alan worked frantically at his console. I'm trying every communication method we have. Radio waves, laser pulses, even simple light patterns. They're not responding to any of them. The alien ship began to emit a soft blue glow. A beam of light shot out, not hitting the frontier but stopping just short of it. Within the beam, points of light began to arrange themselves in patterns. It's a display, John said, moving closer to the view screen. Look at the pattern. The lights formed a simple shape, a circle with a smaller circle inside it. It's a diagram of an atom, Deborah said. The simplest one, hydrogen. Susan nodded. They're starting with basic science. Alan, respond with the next element, helium. Alan quickly programmed the ship's external lights to display two circles with two smaller circles inside. The alien ship paused, then displayed 3 circles. The crew of the Frontier responded with 4 circles. They're establishing communication through scientific knowledge, Susan said. Keep going. For the next hour, the 2 ships exchanged increasingly complex scientific diagrams. From elements to simple mathematical equations, then to representations of star systems. The alien ship was clearly testing the humans' knowledge. They're sending something new, Alan said. The pattern of lights now showed a simple diagram of 2 different ships, clearly the Frontier and the alien vessel, with a line connecting them. I think they're inviting us to dock, Susan said. Or, they want to dock with us, Paul countered. Commander, is that wise? Susan considered for a moment. John, what do you think? You're our first contact specialist. John studied the pattern. It appears peaceful. They've made no aggressive moves. I believe this is an invitation. Or a trap, Deborah added. Susan made her decision. We didn't come all this way to hide. Alan, respond with an affirmative pattern. Paul, prepare airlock 3 for potential docking. Deborah, continue monitoring their ship. John, you're with me. The alien vessel moved closer, aligning itself with the Frontier's airlock. As it approached, they could see that the ship's surface wasn't solid metal, but something that seemed to flow like liquid while maintaining its shape. Incredible, John whispered. Their materials science must be centuries beyond ours. A tube, extended from the alien ship, connecting to the Frontier's airlock with a soft thump. The computer reported a secure seal, and the airlock's exterior door opened. Susan, John, and 2 security officers waited at the inner door. They had decided not to wear spacesuits, reasoning that if the aliens wanted to harm them, suits would provide little protection against their advanced technology. Remember, Susan told the group, we represent all of humanity. Be respectful but cautious. The inner door slid open, revealing the connection tube. It was made of the same flowing material as the alien ship, but transparent enough to see through. At the far end, something moved. The alien that emerged was unlike anything they had imagined. About the size of a human child, it had a body that seemed to shimmer between solid and translucent. Its form was vaguely humanoid, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. But there, the similarity ended. The head had no visible eyes, just a series of ridges where a face would be. Its skin, if it could be called that, pulsed with faint blue light. Behind it came 2 more aliens, slightly different in coloration but similar in form. Hello, Susan said, feeling slightly foolish. We come in peace from the planet Earth. The lead alien made no sound but raised a hand-like appendage. The air between them seemed to shimmer, and suddenly a holographic display appeared in midair. The display showed symbols that shifted and changed rapidly. After a moment, simple English words began to appear. You travel. How? The display read. Susan looked at John, who nodded encouragingly. We travel using what we call the Henderson drive, Susan explained slowly. It manipulates space-time to allow faster-than-light travel. The aliens conferred among themselves, making quick movements with their limbs. The display changed. No. Quantum. Communication. John stepped forward. We detected your quantum signals but cannot generate them ourselves. We use radio waves and other electromagnetic methods for communication. This seemed to cause great surprise among the aliens. Their bodies pulsed with brighter light and they made rapid gestures to each other. Wrong order, the display finally showed. Dangerous. Susan frowned. I don't understand. What's dangerous? The lead alien approached. Closer. Its body seemed to focus, becoming more solid. The display changed again. Travel before talk. Not. Protocol. Council. Concerned. Slowly, through the limited communication system, the humans began to understand. The aliens, who called themselves Ardrians, were representatives of a galactic council, a group of 17 advanced species that governed this region of space. They had been sending messages to Earth for decades, warning them not to venture beyond their solar system until they were formally invited. But these messages had been sent using quantum entanglement communication, a technology humans had barely begun to understand, let alone master. Earth had never received the warnings because they weren't listening on the right channel. You have broken protocol, the display showed. First contact, controlled, safe. Susan tried to explain that they meant no harm, that humans were explorers by nature. The lead Ardrian, who they learned was called Zex Voral, seemed both fascinated and alarmed by the humans. Species develop pattern, the display read. Communication first, travel second, always, you different, unexpected. John was particularly interested in this revelation. You mean all other intelligent species develop quantum communication before faster-than-light travel? Yes, always. Until you. This fundamental difference in technological development had caught the Galactic Council completely by surprise. They had assumed any species that couldn't respond to quantum communications was far too primitive to achieve interstellar travel. We must report, Zex Voral's display showed. Council must know. As the initial meeting continued, the Ardrians began to study the Frontier's systems with great interest, particularly the Henderson Drive. They couldn't seem to understand how humans had developed such technology without first mastering quantum physics. What the humans didn't yet realize was that they had inadvertently sent a powerful message to the galaxy. Humanity didn't follow the expected path of development. They were unpredictable, and to many council species that made them potentially dangerous. But to Zex Voral, it made them fascinating. As the meeting concluded, the Ardrian captain invited Susan and a small team to visit their vessel. The first, direct contact between humans and aliens had begun, and nothing would ever be the same for either species. Dr. Patricia Harris pushed her glasses up her nose and stared at the computer screen. The lab was quiet at 3 in the morning. Only the hum of equipment and the occasional beep from the monitoring systems broke the silence. For years, she and her team at the Global Space Observatory had been tracking strange patterns in cosmic background radiation. They had assumed these patterns were natural phenomena, until now. Patricia took a sip of cold coffee and continued to study the data. The patterns had always been there, just below the threshold of significance, but over the past month they had grown stronger and more frequent. Something had changed. The door to the lab opened, and Kevin Rogers walked in, yawning. His curly hair was messy and his lab coat was wrinkled. "You're still here?" he asked, setting down his own coffee mug. "It's the middle of the night, Patty." Patricia didn't look up from her screen. "I think I found something, Kevin. Look at this." Kevin moved closer and peered at the display. It showed a series of energy spikes occurring at regular intervals. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "Remember those background patterns we've been tracking for years? The ones we thought were just random noise?" Patricia tapped a few keys, and a new image appeared. "I decided to run them through the quantum state analyzer instead of our regular programs." Kevin's eyes widened. "Oh my God," he whispered. "They've been talking to us all along," Patricia said. These aren't random signals. They're language, just not like any language we use. The patterns on the screen now showed clear structure. When interpreted through quantum states rather than binary code, they formed sequences too regular to be natural. If you interpret it through quantum states rather than binary, patterns emerge, Patricia explained. Look at this. These sequences repeat with variations like words and sentences. Kevin pulled up a chair and sat down. But why haven't we noticed this before? Because we were looking for the wrong thing, Patricia said. We expected radio waves or some other form of electromagnetic communication. This is different. It's based on quantum entanglement, instantaneous communication regardless of distance. Who could be sending these? Kevin asked. Patricia smiled. I think we both know the answer to that. Far away in the Alpha Centauri system, Susan Nelson and a small team from the USS Frontier were being escorted onto the Ardrian vessel. The interior of the alien ship was unlike anything they had imagined. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with soft light. There were no sharp corners, only flowing curves. Strange symbols floated in midair, changing as the Ardrians moved through them. This is incredible, John whispered. Their technology is integrated into the structure of the ship itself. Zexvoral led them to a large circular room that seemed to be the command center. Unlike the bridge of the Frontier, there were no consoles or screens. The Ardrians simply moved their limbs through the floating symbols to control the ship. The translation display appeared in front of them again. You understand now? Susan nodded. Your ship is beautiful, very different from ours. Not ship, the display read. Message. You understand messages? John stepped forward. You mean the quantum communications you've been sending to Earth? Yes, many years. Warning. Susan and John exchanged glances. Warning about what? Susan asked. The display shifted. Protocol. Procedure. Safety. Young species. Dangerous. To selves. Need. Guidance. Slowly they began to understand. The Galactic Council had established strict protocols for first contact with new species. These protocols were designed to prevent technological disasters and cultural shock. According to these rules, a species should not venture beyond their solar system until they had been properly introduced to the galactic community. Your species was deemed unready, the Ardrian representative explained through the flickering display. You did not answer our calls. We couldn't hear you, Susan replied simply. We were looking in the wrong place. This concept seemed difficult for the Ardrians to grasp. In their experience, quantum communication was a natural step in technological evolution occurring long before faster-than-light travel. How travel without quantum? Zexvoral asked. Susan tried to explain the Henderson Drive, how Dr. Elena Kaminsky had discovered a way to fold space-time using gravitational fields generated by rotating singularities. The Ardrians seemed both impressed and disturbed by this explanation. Different to path, the display finally showed. Unexpected. Back on Earth, Patricia and Kevin had alerted their supervisors about their discovery. Within hours, the lab was filled with scientists and government officials. The patterns they had discovered were being compared to known languages and mathematical systems. If these are alien communications, one official said, why haven't they tried to contact us directly? Why use such an obscure method? Patricia shook her head. Maybe it's not obscure to them. Maybe quantum entanglement is their equivalent of radio waves, the most basic form of long-distance communication. As they continued to study the signals, a new pattern emerged, stronger and more focused than the others. It seemed to be coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri. The Frontier, Kevin said excitedly. They must have made contact. But the new signals were different from the older patterns. They contained elements of both the quantum language and human communication styles. Someone was trying to bridge the gap. On the Ardrian vessel, John had been working with their scientists to develop a better translation system. Using mathematics as a common language, they had made significant progress. The council must decide what to do with you, Zex Vorel explained through the improved translator. Your unexpected arrival has created a problem. We meant no offense, Susan said. We are explorers, seeking knowledge and peaceful contact with other intelligent life. Your intentions are not the issue, another Ardrian named Mev Talon replied. Your methods are. You have developed in a way that does not follow the expected path. Some council members will see this as threatening. Threatening? Why? Susan asked. Because you are unpredictable, Zex Vorel said. All other known species follow similar patterns of development. First comes quantum understanding, then unified, field theory, then faster-than-light communication, and finally faster-than-light travel. You have skipped steps. This makes your future development uncertain. Susan considered this. On Earth, we have a saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat. It means there are many ways to achieve the same goal. The Ardrians seemed confused by this idiom, but they understood the principle. Different paths could lead to the same destination. Perhaps, Zex Vorel admitted. But the Council prefers certainty, predictability. What happens now? Susan asked. We have sent messages to the Council. They will convene to discuss your case. Until then, we will continue to learn from each other. As Susan and her team returned to the frontier, they carried with them the weight of this revelation. Humanity hadn't just discovered alien life. They had challenged the fundamental assumptions of an entire galactic civilization. The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything humans could have imagined. Located in a space station orbiting a neutron star, it was a vast room where representatives from 17 advanced civilizations gathered. Some floated in tanks of liquid, others existed as patterns of light, and some looked almost human-like. Zex Vorel stood before the council, presenting what they had learned about humans. The data from their meetings with the USS Frontier crew was displayed for all to see. These humans have achieved faster-than-light travel without mastering quantum communication, Zex Vorel explained. Their technological development does not follow our standard model. A ripple of concern moved through the assembled representatives. A tall, insect-like being called Trixnan moved forward. This is precisely why we have protocols, Trixnan said. A species that develops unevenly is dangerous. They could destroy themselves or others through technological missteps. I disagree, said Lun Mora, a cloud-like entity that pulsed with soft green light. Different paths of development suggest creative thinking. This could bring new ideas to our community. The debate grew heated. Some council members saw humans as a threat. A species that could travel between stars but couldn't properly communicate posed serious risks. Others were intrigued by this alternative evolutionary path. We should contain them, Trixnan insisted. Send them back to their solar system until they develop properly. And how would we do that? Asked Zex Vorel. Their Henderson drive technology allows them to travel faster than our interceptor ships. We cannot simply force them back. This revelation caused even more concern. A species that could potentially outrun the Council's enforcement vessels was unprecedented. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Patricia Harris and her team were working day and night to develop a device that could respond to the quantum messages. They had help from scientists around the world, all focused on this breakthrough. If we can establish quantum communication, Patricia told the International Science Committee, we might be able to reach the Frontier crew and warn them about these alien protocols they've apparently violated. But the Frontier is 4 light-years away, a scientist from India pointed out. Even with quantum communication, how can we help them now? Quantum entanglement is instantaneous regardless of distance, Patricia explained. If we can match the frequency patterns we've detected, we might be able to communicate with them directly. Kevin entered the room, his face showing both excitement and concern. We've got something, he said. The signals have changed again. They're coming more frequently now, and they contain what looks like Earth-based language patterns mixed with the quantum code. Patricia followed him back to the lab, where the screens showed the new signal patterns. "They're trying to talk to us," she said. "Someone out there is combining their communication methods with ours." On the USS Frontier, engineer Paul Fletcher was working with the Ardrian scientists to modify their communications array. Using parts from both ships, they had built a hybrid system that could broadcast on quantum frequencies. "We've been running silent all these years," Paul said as he adjusted a connection. "Broadcasting into space, but never on the right channel." Susan watched the work with a mix of hope and concern. The Ardrians had explained the Galactic Council's debate, and she knew the fate of human exploration might hang in the balance. "If we can show them we're willing to learn," Susan said to John, "maybe they'll give us a chance." "It's more than that," John replied. "We need to show them why our different development path isn't a threat but an opportunity. Our unique perspective could benefit their community." Paul straightened up from his work. "The system is online. Commander, we can now broadcast on quantum frequencies. What should we say?" Susan thought carefully. The Council was debating humanity's future based on limited information. They needed to understand humans better before making their decision. "If they can't understand our perspective, let's show them," Susan said. "Let's send them something that explains who we are, not just words, but our history, our art, our dreams." The crew compiled a comprehensive package. They included human history, art, music, literature, scientific achievements, and philosophical concepts. They showed humanity's greatest triumphs and darkest moments, their hopes and their fears. Most importantly, they included humanity's desire to explore and understand the universe, not to conquer, but to connect. "This is who we are," Susan said as the final package was prepared. "Our full story." As the quantum broadcast began, something unexpected happened. Back on Earth, Patricia's equipment detected the signal. "It's coming from Alpha Centauri," she said in amazement. "But it's in a format we can partially understand. Someone is bridging the gap between our technologies." The message from the Frontier echoed across the quantum network that connected the 17 civilizations. Unlike the formal, sterile communications of the Council, the human broadcast was messy, emotional, contradictory, and beautifully honest. On the Council's central world, representatives gathered to experience this unusual transmission. Some were horrified by humanity's violent history, others were moved by their art, and all were astonished by their technological path. "They build ships before bridges," remarked one council member. "No," corrected another. "They build bridges between stars." The human message spread across the council network, creating fierce debate. The passion and creativity in the human story touched many of the alien representatives. The fact that humans had developed artificial gravity, faster than light travel, and advanced medical science without fully understanding quantum physics suggested a unique form of intelligence. Back on the Frontier, Susan waited anxiously for a response. The ship had been in Alpha Centauri for 2 weeks now, and the council had been deliberating for days. "Do you think they'll accept us?" she asked Zex Vorel, who had become something of a friend despite their differences. "Your message was unexpected," the Ardrian replied. "Like everything about your species. Some council members are still afraid, but others are curious. Your willingness to share your complete history, including your failures and conflicts, has impressed many." "We're not perfect," Susan said, "but we're trying to be better." "Perhaps that is enough," Zex Vorel said. "The Council has reached a preliminary decision. They will not force you back to your solar system. Instead, they propose an exchange of knowledge and culture, a probationary period during which humans will learn Council protocols and share their unique technological developments." Susan felt a wave of relief. This wasn't just about the Frontier crew anymore. This was about humanity's place in a larger community of intelligent life. "We accept," she said without hesitation. As the Ardrian ship prepared to escort the Frontier to the nearest Council outpost, Susan recorded a message to be sent back to Earth. It would take 4 years to reach home at the speed of light, but she hoped the new quantum communication systems might deliver it sooner. "People of Earth," she began, We have made contact with a galactic community of intelligent species. We have much to learn from them, but also much to teach. Our journey among the stars has only just begun. 6 months passed. The USS Frontier had been to 3 different council worlds, and each visit brought new wonders and challenges. Susan had grown used to the strange sights, beings made of crystal who communicated through light patterns, ocean-dwelling, intelligences whose cities stretched across entire seas, and cloud-like entities that lived in the upper atmospheres of gas giants. Today, the Frontier was returning to Earth, but they weren't coming alone. Susan stood on the bridge, watching the view screen as Earth grew larger. The blue-green planet looked exactly as she remembered it, but everything else had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. More importantly, they were no longer ignorant of the complex rules and relationships that governed interstellar society. "We're being hailed," Alan said from his communication station. "It's Houston Control. Put them through," Susan replied. A man's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but excited. "USS Frontier, this is Houston Control. Welcome home." "Thank you, Houston," Susan said with a smile. "Request permission to bring our guests into orbit." There was a brief pause. "Confirmed, Frontier. Your escorts are cleared for Earth orbit. Landing protocols for the diplomatic party have been established." Susan nodded. "We'll begin descent in 1 hour. Frontier out." She turned to look at Zex Voral, who stood at the back of the bridge. The Ardrian had become their primary liaison with the Council. "Are your people ready?" "Yes," Zex Voral replied through the now refined translator. "The representatives are eager to meet your leaders. This is a historic moment for both our peoples." Behind the Frontier, 5 ships from different Council species moved into Earth orbit. They represented the 5 Council members who had voted to establish formal relations with humanity. Their arrival would change Earth forever. On the planet below, Dr. Patricia Harris stood on the landing pad at the International Space Center. Around her, world leaders and scientists waited nervously for the arrival of the Frontier and its alien guests. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of preparation. After their breakthrough in understanding the quantum signals, Patricia's team had established basic communication with the Galactic Council. They had learned of the Frontier's journey and the Council's decision to initiate contact. "Are you ready?" "For this?" Kevin asked, standing beside her. Patricia adjusted her glasses. "Not really, but then, who could be?" The crowd gasped as the first shuttle became visible in the sky. It was the Frontier's landing craft, designed for atmospheric entry. Behind it came something else, a shimmering object that seemed to change shape as it descended. The alien vessel. The Frontier's shuttle landed first, touching down with a gentle hiss of thrusters. The door opened and Susan Nelson stepped out, followed by her senior crew. They looked different somehow, changed by their experiences beyond Earth's atmosphere. The alien craft landed next, settling onto the pad without a sound. A doorway appeared in its side, and out stepped the delegation from the Galactic Council. Zex Voral led the group, followed by representatives from 4 other species. Each was dramatically different from the others, showcasing the diversity of intelligent life in the galaxy. The Earth's representatives stepped forward. The Secretary General of the United Nations spoke first. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Earth." Zex Voral's body shimmered as the translator converted his response. "The Galactic Council acknowledges humanity and welcomes Earth to the greater community of intelligent species." It was a simple exchange, but its importance could not be overstated. Humanity had officially joined the galactic community. In the days that followed, agreements were signed, technologies were exchanged, with careful restrictions, and cultural artifacts were shared. The Council representatives insisted on strict protocols for technological development, particularly regarding weapons and environmental impact. In return, they offered access to medical advances that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Susan found Patricia in the science complex, where she was studying the quantum communication device the Ardrians had helped build. "So, You're the one who finally heard them, Susan said, extending her hand. Patricia smiled. And you're the one who made them listen to us. The two women shook hands, connecting the two parts of humanity's first contact story. It's strange, Patricia said as they walked through the complex. All those years they were trying to talk to us and we couldn't hear them. Then we showed up on their doorstep without an invitation. Sometimes not following the normal path leads to unexpected places, Susan replied. In a conference room nearby, Paul Fletcher was explaining the Henderson Drive to a group of council scientists. They seemed both impressed and concerned by the technology. You manipulate gravity fields to create a fold in space-time, one alien scientist said. But without quantum stabilization, how do you prevent phase collapse? Paul grinned. We don't need to. The rotational momentum of the drive creates its own stability field. The alien scientists exchanged glances. It was clear they had never considered this approach. In another room, John Martinez was learning about the cultural practices of the council species. The diversity was astounding. 17 primary species, each with their own history, biology, and worldview, all working together despite their differences. How do you resolve conflicts between species? John asked in tall, crystalline being. Slowly, the being replied, its voice tinkling like wind chimes. With patience and compromise. The council has existed for 10,000 years. We have learned that understanding takes time. 1 month after the arrival of the council representatives, a new facility was unveiled in Geneva, the Galactic Embassy. It would serve as Earth's official connection to the wider community of intelligent life. Similar embassies would eventually be established on other council worlds. Susan stood with Zex Vorel at the opening ceremony. What happens now? She asked. Now the real work begins, the Ardrian replied. Your species will need to adapt to council protocols, especially regarding expansion and resource use. Some of your people will resist these changes. And some of your council members still don't trust us, Susan noted. Trust is earned over time, Zex Vorel said. But you have made a good start. Your message, showing your full history, both achievements and failures, impressed many council species. Most young civilizations try to hide their mistakes. Susan watched as humans and aliens mingled in the embassy garden. It was an imperfect beginning to a complex relationship, but it was a beginning nonetheless. We couldn't hear their message, she said to Patricia, who had joined them. But we made sure they heard ours. Patricia nodded. And sometimes that makes all the difference. As night fell over Geneva, lights from the alien ships in orbit became visible in the sky. New stars, in an ancient pattern, changing humanity's view of the universe forever.